Yo, what up, y'all? Thank y'all for coming out. Just wanted to, give a shout out to the Trojans in the building. If there's any students in the house, just know I was there. He's sitting right there, you know what I mean? And now I'm standing right here, so whether you vibe with it or not, just know it's possible to be up over here. That's what this is really about. So I hope y'all enjoy the movie, Angry Black and a Monster, directed by yours truly. And enjoy the fiction, please.
Hi, everybody. Well, thanks again for coming out. I'm Barnett Kelvin. It's my pleasure to do a Q&A with my dear friend and former student, Bomani J. And I think everyone, come on up. Have a seat. It's amazing. Just can I take wow. I'm blown away. Frankly, I'm blown away. It's great seeing on this screen, too. Think you look good? Yeah. Fantastic, Daphne. You in the house? And it's good, yeah. Like, the one thing to do all on this achievement, besides being really, really well done and very entertaining, and congrats on the festival reception. Before we get into that, Bomani, please introduce your collaborators and tell us a little bit about how this gang came together, how you assembled your cast, your crew and your cast.
Yeah, no, 100%. Y'all want to go down the line?
Hey everyone, my name is Laya DeLeon. I play and I play Vicaria in the movie The Angry Black and Monster.
I'm Grant Meurs. I was the sound designer and through writing sound editor.
I'm Daphne Qin Wu and I'm the cinematographer.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Denzel Whitaker, Tango.
Cool.
Great job. Great job. Okay, now, tell us a little bit about the festival experience. You were just at South by?
Yeah, we, world premiere. That was, that was a lot of our first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how was that for you? Yeah, it was great for me.
Great for you.
Yeah. Grant, was that yours?
Yeah, that was my first time, and that was my first time in Austin. First time I stuff, but it was amazing.
Yeah, first for me as well.
Yeah.
I mean, literally saying first time Austin, South by, and Bomani loves withholding things, so, yeah. First time in our friendship, I get to watch the film. Thank you.
So, how did you put this crew together? Tell us a little bit, one by one. Starting with Daphne. Did you guys know each other before? Did you work together from? You're an alum also, right?
Yeah, I'm 2011. So we went to college together, Bomani and I.
Yeah. Did you work here at all together or anything like that, or just know each other's work?
I don't think we did, actually.
No.
Yeah, I think our relationship blossomed after. Very soon after. So, I always had my eye on her because I knew she was dope. And so, I was always kind of wanting to work with her, and then this jumped off eventually. So I was able to call her into the ring.
Well, it's a beautiful job, beautiful looking film in every sense, and the variety of the kind of camera movement, the growling sense of that steady cam at the beginning, the choreography of that whole opening sequence is so hypnotic and created such a world that then just, shattered and reordered. Really bravo. With a lot of help from sound, amazing sound design. I want to hear a little bit about, how you worked on that, how you guys collaborated on that later on. But did you guys know each other before, or did you meet on this project? How did that work?
Well, actually, we met on my first feature there, and we wrote our Rocksteady Row. I think we showed it this very room, which is great. And yeah, Grant, why don't you tell us about our relationship?
So our first collaboration was on Rocksteady Row, which won the Sundance Film Festival, I think in 2018. It was like 5 years ago. And that was actually the first time that I heard about this project, actually, I think it was at Slandouts, was when Bomani first had like brought it to my attention.
You were talking about this at that time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't talk about it later, but I think it's been a very long, gestating project for Bomani. And I mean, we hit off like right away. We've been really close friends ever since, and we're very lucky to get to collaborate on this film together.
Well, I'm going to hold back on the casting a little bit till just a little bit later. But since you brought up Rock City Row, which is a terrific picture that Bomani work, I feel like there are some really interesting similarities. Do you ever feel that way about this? I mean, there's a world that you create that has this very formalistic order, the sense of location, the sense of court. There's kind of a judgment court. There's a kind of a set of rules and order, and the way the location takes over is the whole world is hermetically sealed. It's really remarkable. It was really fun thing for me to see. Rock City Row had you all over it, so that's a bravo. That's terrific. Yeah, I guess you're aware of that.
Not till now, yeah.
That's great. And this film really has a lot on its mind. It's a lot more than jump scares here. And death is a disease. There's a cure. And bringing Chris back accidentally, but then unleashing him as a scourge, and also potentially as a healing factor in the neighborhood, but then of course creating a monster, and having to kick the monster back in, and the kind of redemption of Ango at the end, who always had kind of had a double-edged mission in the neighborhood, a strange double-edged mission, and very, very thoughtful, smart family film in a weird way. So obviously you've been thinking about this for a while. What was the genesis of it? What got you on this thing? What are your sources besides Mary Shelley, and how did you get to Mary Shelley to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, it started with the literature. But I read the book when I was fresh out of high school and just loved it. It felt like a lot of things were still really resonant today, and then you mix that with as I always say, it's like I have two big sisters, and they were my muse in creating their lovely character. It's like I think she talked to them for a little bit before we did that school scene. I had my sisters talk to her because that was based off of a legendary story that we tell around the kitchen table that comes up every once in a while that happened to her. So I had her talk to my sister about it.
It was amazing. That was my first time ever getting like a mate source, someone who had truly had the experience and was able to and was open enough to share it. That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie too. We got to do it, so I hope that we should have justice for Thursday.
It's a wonderful scene, and it's inciting in such a simple but poignant way. The moment is so clear that there's potential for her to be broken, and absolutely is not broken. In fact, turned the other way. So that's great, and that came from you guys saw it with his sister, and you're getting it from your sister. Fabulous. So what's the chronology here? So you started writing it. You wrote this all first before pitching it. In other words, you didn't go out and pitch it first. You started you wrote a script, or tell us the chronology of the project.
Yeah, basically it was like I wrote her own spec and for myself because it was something that I loved and I wanted to do. And then I started taking it around town and getting those for a while until somebody, until Crypt TV kind of jumped on board and was like, they wanted to police it. And then,
and you had no problem at all getting to direct this, apparently, right? How'd that go down?
Yeah, no, he knows because I called him, and I was like, there was, because I didn't have any prior directing experience, so that's always going to kind of be a challenge. And I called Barnett because I was like, look, man, he's like, and I was talking to him about the deal, and he's just like, you really don't want anyone else to direct this to you. I was like, no, and he was like, all right, well, here's what you do. And he gave me really good advice on how to make the deal like go my way, you know, and like it was fantastic. Like I remember you kind of was like, listen, people aren't gonna understand like there's no like when it comes to the numbers, they're gonna just keep going up because as far as you know you're concerned, they have no ceiling yet, so they can offer you any amount of money until you say yes, right? And it's just like you kind of got to tell people to shit or get off the pot, right? It's like if you're serious about it, then let's make this movie. But if not, you know, then I'm moving on. And so it was a risky choice, but like,
There's some trick. I mean, you could. I don't want you to get the wrong impression. There's no trick involved. I was just helping him answer his own question, which was in his soul, which is the most important thing was to direct it, then just keep saying no to what they say. Because they'll keep saying things until you say yes to and it's okay. It's okay. And if you don't have to direct this, then take the writing credit, you know, and take the money and move on to the next project. That's okay too. I was just bouncing with you. That's all you made. It's all you. It's okay.
so how could he make you don't have to try to save yourself? It's like it works. You can just take credit for it.
So I don't want them all calling me out. So how long did this all take, this process?
Yes. Yeah, like we were literally shooting in production a year ago, right?
Yeah, this was our first, I think our fourth day on set, this day a year ago. So yeah, you did rehearsal process, with a good rehearsal process for about 2 weeks before we started.
All right, it's music to my ears. Can you talk about that a little bit? Were you obviously you were around, you had to be around all the time. Denzel, were you at rehearsals too?
I was, yeah.
So tell us, how'd you do, what was your process?
Yes, please. You guys talking about the rehearsal. Let me hear from you. I'm like,
You mean the torture and gives me? No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Lady, keep going.
He's not kidding. I think it started because there was no like sound stages in Charlotte, so you're really working out of a warehouse a lot of the time, and this warehouse was super scary. I mean, I think there was one room or one hallway that just had doors and like lights that were going out. And on my first day, Bomani was like, let's go in this weird hallway. I'm going to play some scary music and I'm going to tell you what it is. You should just like open doors and I'll watch you. We did that for like 2 hours. And also the horror music that he was playing was truly horrifying. It was just like as scary in the movie, just instead of like, I don't know, like a creepy Halloween sound, it was like babies and mothers screaming at the top of their lungs. Like, it was really horrifying. So I think by the end of our first day of rehearsal, I was like, well, nothing can scare me now because I've been scared to death already. And that was just before our scene that we rehearsed together too.
Was that the same day?
No, this
Okay.
was different because we were also in one of those rooms as well, probably with horror music.
We definitely were. Mine was
Were
more.
you by yourself or did you have a crew around you? You know what I mean? Did you have backup? Did you have Jamal or was it just you on the scenes when you're doing your scenes together?
It was just during rehearsal.
First.
How many people did you get together for? Were you able to get together your cast?
I think I was only able to get at least like 1 or 2 people at a time, right?
Yeah, 2 at a time. It was different stages. You know, we would at least work no more than 2. Yeah.
Yeah. We had some rehearsals as well with Edda, who plays Chris, and he was figuring out a lot of the movements and what our relationship was going to be like as well. Those are some of my favorite rehearsals because, again, we were in a warehouse. It was hot, but it was wonderful to see like just how wonderfully talented Adam is, how physically he was just able to connect to Chris and try to figure it out on the day. So I was very intrigued and fascinated by a rehearsal process with him. And then by the time we got to the day to film with him, we were all ready to go.
So you can go ahead, please, Denzel.
I think ultimately, just kind of speaking to Bomani in the process, it was really about finding the core of who our each individual characters were. And that's why we really didn't do like large rehearsals. It was about like the interpersonal relationships that we had between each other. So I did rehearse with Jamal, Keith Holiday, who played him. Leigh and I did rehearse together. It was what are those one-on-one relationships, and what is like a core scene that really is like a crystallization of what's going to carry us through the entire film. And that's what our rehearsal process was kind of like. And then once we found that nugget, Bomani really encouraged us to just keep asking questions. Even, I remember, what was it, the first week we got there, Bomani sitting there asking like, well, would Tango do that? I don't know, you wrote the damn script. but you know, it's wonderful because literally within that rehearsal process, we had the freedom and the space just to like open it up. Break every single rule, challenge him as much as possible, whatever time of the day it was, send text messages back and forth and figure out who these characters are. So by the time we completely broken them on our own, we can put it back together once we get, you know, day of shooting. And he really just kind of gave us that space.
Well, let's just back up a bit. How did you all meet? What was your casting process? So you cast these guys in LA?
In the casting director sitting right here.
I just want to say great job. Really terrific cast. And you know, I feel like an amateur meeting these guys here. I can't believe they were the guys up there. You know what I mean? You know, you seem how old in the film, you know. So what was the casting? Was everybody cast out of LA?
It was just Yunjin's out there, but the only two and Chad probably, but yeah, but
Adam's out of LA.
Adam's out of LA.
And was this in person? Was this on tape? Was it what? Yeah, what were the stages? Please tell us. What were the steps?
Yeah, it was on tape and Zoom. You know, as much as I didn't like it, I sent an email to our caster and I was just like, is this what happened to person right now?
Was this pandemic, totally pandemic related? And you never got a chance to do chemistry reads or anything like that?
We did chemistry reads.
On Zoom. It works. Apparently. Great.
It's everyone, all the directors I work with are question if it works, and it always works. I'm in the possibility of the one right now, and it works. And just Mike doesn't think it's gonna work, and then you see them together on Zoom, and it feels just like, listen.
Well, that's great. That's great. Did you learn stuff from about the characters in the course of meeting these guys? The course of the casting process?
Yeah, no, one of the beautiful things about the casting process to me was like, one, like starting the beginnings of building a repertoire with them, and then seeing, you know, what they have in me later. I kind of marathoned her a little bit.
There was a lot going on in that Zoom shoot. As often, like, a lot of different like redirection and different ideas. But made it fun. Got to at least play and because I think a lot of the time, I mean, with Zoom auditions and obviously with tapes, like it's hard to get redirection and it's obviously hard to know, like, kind of gauge how a director is feeling or if they want to try anything else. Bomani was super open and had so many weird ideas that we could all just like play with. And I had a lot of fun in the audition, especially the chemistry with Denzel was a good time too, because that ended up being like I think the scene right after I stabbed Chris's hand.
And the rest of the cast came out of North Carolina?
Yeah.
Were you down there on that too, or is that somebody took it over? Yeah. Well, it was a good handoff. It was really good, amazing. Before we get to North Carolina, because I'm interested in that, what was the process of working with Daphne? How did you guys work together? How did you communicate what you were looking for, and you know, what's the collaboration and great Steadicam work? I mean, is that somebody you'd worked with before, the Steadicam operator?
No, that was local. Cinematographer, and he's based in, I believe, Wilmington, not Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had, well, our prep was pretty short.
How long was the whole thing? Give us a little bit of sense of time. How long was the prep? How long was the shoot?
I think because you were there probably a month ahead of time, but I was there like 2 weeks ahead of time. It was very short. So I think I landed and, it was like location scout immediately. Look at it during the day, look at it at night. Meeting with the production designer, who was building the sets. And honestly, we had very little time to really shortlist or do anything. I think I had we had like a general idea of how we wanted the movie to look visually. And Bomani had all these really specific references for specific themes. And I think what ended up happening was, I think I wrote down my visual ideas, you had your visual ideas, and then on the day, we would just block, or you would block the actors, and we go from there, Some things from the shot list made it in, and some days changed completely.
Well, it worked. It worked brilliantly. That location is a big part of the story. How did that come about? I mean, I'm gonna get how many days was the shoot before it?
20.
It's a time.
Yeah, well, like it became less because all them lightning strikes and stuff. Like, I think my first day.
Real lightning strikes or Leia's days?
Well, yeah. But no, after those like lightning strikes and other environmental hazards, like we ended up losing like, I don't know, probably like a whole day and a half, right? Like,
Yeah, it was not completed.
yeah, we ended up probably around 18 and a half or something, or 18 days, when you consider all the time that was lost from just dealing with the environment and stuff.
And did you write it specifically for that sort of location? Is that exactly what the kind of housing thing you were looking for in the script?
Yeah, it was really strange. Like at first, because I wanted to shoot in LA. And then the producers were like, we need that rebate money. So they took me to Charlotte. And then I walked on to that location and I was just like, this is weird. This is exactly what I wrote in the script. It's like, we do need that rebate money. It's coming out like, we're shooting here. And
It's exactly my places around here.
yeah, and then they were just like, you can't shoot here. And I was like, what? And so, I was kind of having a panic attack because we all were out there. We didn't have the location until like, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks in, like a week before shooting or 2 weeks before shooting. And weirdly what happened was there was someone in the office that was stonewalling us. And then my location scout, who was kind of taking us to all these other weird locations, because we pretty much had written the location out, like, oh, I guess we can't do it. And then I went rogue and I just told him, I was just like, they're really fucking us on this location that I really want. And he was just like, oh, I know the politic people. I'll just go talk to them and then we can have it. And I was just like, yes, please. Right? It's like, and so he just went around the person and told the council member, and they were just like, I can only assume it was just like, you're not going to stop Charlotte from getting movies and stuff. So like, we're going to do it, So then we got the place and it was great because it was basically like almost, wasn't completely, but almost, it was like 90% vacant. Right, like so.
Is that right? The place was vacant because it looked like it was your set.
Yeah,
It looked like you owned it and had total control.
I would say all that.
So it looks like
Yeah. Yeah. Almost. Almost. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about sound. About what did you guys talk about in the dance? How do you arrive at how much of it is pre, how much of it is post?
I mean, I think similar to production, there is a level of like giving us so much time and resources, and you can talk about plenty of things ahead of time, and then things go out the window. But I think one of my favorite stories, I think that being brought up the like specific references that Omani has, and
What's an example? Can you give us an example?
So the dream sequence in particular is, I think, an homage to David Lynch in particular in Inland Empire. And Bomani would constantly, like, at random hours of the day, text me David Lynch with our friend. And like, I think it was like literally 3 a.m. And I like woke up. I'm like, this text idiot. And like, I read a text from Bomani as a David Lynch. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas. I think I don't know if this is a specific movie that we talked about, but I know I love it. Is Kushi Kurosawa's Pulse, and I think a lot of conversations that we had too about like tone, because I think that for all of the David Lynch maybe isn't everybody's cup of tea. It's definitely my cup of tea, and then Vampire is big enough everybody's cup of tea. But I think that this is also, we're trying to make a crowd-pleasing film. Something that really tries, connects with people. So I think those are some of our conversations as well.
That's great. That's really great. We have a few minutes. I want to give just a couple questions. If there are any questions from the audience? Yeah, Brandon. Ben, I'm curious about where you got your ideas for makeup. Question is, where'd you get ideas for the makeup for the monster? Is that it?
Yeah, you talking about reference points? Like, yeah, I definitely had like, Leatherface was in there. It's like I enjoyed that, and I also was like also kind of looking at zombies as well, because to me it was like you're trafficking in corpses here, right? So he shouldn't look all put together. Like, there should be different levels of decay going on his skin and things of that nature. So really that was like my jumping off point. And then my what do we call him, concept artist, he really came through and did some stuff. And then Christina Cordum, who was she was like a one-woman band throughout the entire thing, and she did all the gore and she did all the creature design stuff. And so that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, it did.
It could not have been your idea. Who that you wanted to play the scary music to get the actors in scary mode? I did not learn that in Garnett's class, so I know that that was a Garnett thing. Yeah.
It actually was.
No. Are you serious?
I don't teach everything on that. He called me up. He said, I'm going to have somebody there. I'm going to be alone and there's no dialogue. What do you do? And I went, you think about that. I said, it's common sense.
Yeah,
No, I'm really glad it worked. I really
Exercise how I will mention the hate you the one. There's like any semblance of a relationship.
Nah, like, when he told me that, I was just, that's fucking genius. Because, like, well, no, it's like,
What did you play? What was like,
Yes, gotcha. It's like, when I was on set, the production sound guy would like always come up to me and he'd be like, because he was a horror buff, and he loved horror movies as much as I did. He was like, "This is from this movie, ain't it?" And I was just like, "I got you." The one he couldn't figure out was, I think he couldn't figure out Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's so strange, but it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I was the one with the babies and the chickens. Yeah, it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I had The Shining going, and I had Black Christmas. That one's really hard to find. You actually can't find that. You have to like go on YouTube and like find the full length, just like 45 minutes, and you just have to like play it. You can't like do tracks. So that was wild. And then so Shining, Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there was one more in there that I can't remember what it is, but yeah, whatever. I'm gonna be true. But anyways, genius. Because when I was like, you're directing a horror movie, which people need to be walking down the hall and looking freaked the fuck out. How do you get to that moment? How do you get your actor that? It's just like, y'all need something to react to, right? Right? It's just like
2 a.m. at delay course.
It's like, so, it's like, because usually you'll have another actor, you guys are feeding off each other, right? But it's like, if you're just alone, it's like, what are you reacting to? And so the music helps.
Sounds like The Warehouse was a good thing too.
Yes, and the time was missing. I'm seriously.
It's a good hand on it.
Yeah.
Anthony.
Great job. Really enjoyed it. But my favorite part of the film was like how suspenseful it was. So between cinematography, sound, and directing, what was your thought process in creating tension?
Take it away.
I guess it depends on, well, it depends on the moment, right? Because kind of, you always want to build tension and you want to hold it and then you release it, right? Depending on the scene. So really I mean, it depends on the blocking and the performances. And we would watch the rehearsal and we would say, okay, let's do this. Let's have a static composition here. And then, because it'll be a composition cut to composition, cut to something else. Or it might be like, oh, let's do a push in here. Yeah, because we want to draw this movement out longer than is realistic, right? And then you really just hope they edit it in a way that makes sense.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, Woody, but there was, I think, discussions about how slow people were moving down hallways.
Right? Speaking of hallways,
I think also in the mix as well with the sound in terms of tension, I think of like knowing also like when to use music and when not to. I think on the mix stage we had our wonderful music editor Scott, and I think Nima's score is really fantastic, and they absolutely, I think, were not precious about like when like, hey, this moment is working really well without music. I love keeping that tension of, when like Jamal's walking down the hallway at Victoria and moments like that. I think of like finding that balance in the mix too, of when to push down on the gas and when to kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
I want to give a shout out to the humor too. That wonderful Racket Busters, the whole dinner scene was so terrific. And the way you ended it with everybody getting to do their own performance on a Racket Busters. And, you really feel like you're just enjoying an inside family joke, and all the tension goes away and things are like normal, and you're hearing this. Like, you still enjoy the moment. Sit down back there.
Hey guys, yeah, I've really enjoyed the film too. Bomani, for you, what's your philosophy on on creating jump scares, right? And what was it like working with your editor to figure out where to place him or not to place him? What was that process like?
Well, for me, like, I like to think of horror as like a spectrum. Like, I feel like these days people, when they think about horror, they have one idea, right? It's, you hear something downstairs, it's like, well, don't go down there, right? But the characters don't go down there and it's dark. And then they're going to cut on the lights and see nothing's there and they're going to turn around and boop, you're right. You're like, right, so I think that's a way, like, to do a jump scare, like, people are kind of cashing in on that. They're like banking on that. And to me, as I brought up before, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of the things that they will utilize are just like all different types of tools to just make you feel uncomfortable. And to me, like, whether it's hearing a grating sound in a random place, right? Like, I don't want audiences to kind of be like, it's like, because it's coming. Even if it gets you, it's coming, right? So it's like, and I think that's effectual. But for me, with this one, I wanted to experiment with expanding with what that means is like, you hear an uncomfortable sound, so of course there's some traditional ones, like when the creature wakes up and grabs her, like that's a very traditional one, which I think is great. But there's also just, for instance, like when I cut to the fucking hole in the wall, right? It's just like, it's, it can be treated as a jump scare. So to me, it's really trying to explore what that means and giving an audience a different palette for that and expanding that, right? Like, because I don't want you to just have the same kind of jump scare scene over and over again. Yeah. Right, so.
Great. Last one's over here. Well, these and this, and then we'll say, yeah.
I got to Africa as an adaptation, or kind of an homage. I think it so successfully conveys so many of the themes, and just said to try to spin off, and I think we did grab with it. And in terms of, there's always kind of that pride, Frankenstein, that kind of stuff. But in terms of when you say you read it and it resonated so strongly, what were those threads, maybe beyond just the kind of life and death and like the conquering of death that pulled you to want to adapt it in this way? Because I think it was kind of.
Well, thank you. It was just like certain themes of like, I mean, prejudice is a big one. But also there's a lot of overlooked themes in the book, like family is a huge one. Like, when you read the book, like Victor's mom also dies very early on. And, you know, you're really watching not only the downfall of this man, but the destruction of his family and him trying to rebuild it. You know, I don't know if you've read the book, but like, you know, shit goes down, right? Like, you know, it's like a family members in like, and just how society was treating him as well. I mean, there's even a part I wasn't able to explore it in this movie, but there's even a part where Victor gets wrongfully convicted of a crime and thrown in jail, right? And that also kind of resonated with me. There was a version of the script where I like had that in there, but yeah, there's just like certain things of just like the systems that were kind of fucking with him, right? And so all those things really spoke to me. And I know most people, when they look at the story of Frankenstein, they're always like, well, it's man versus God, or man shouldn't play God. And I was like, that is a interpretation of the work. You know, just one, it's a popular one, but it's not necessarily the one that spoke to me the most. And to me, Victor was grieving, and Victor was trying to process his grief. And Victor was doing this through the only way he understood how, which was, you know, through science. And, you know, I think people will process these things a lot differently. So, in a lot of different ways. And for me, that's one of the strong veins of Frankenstein that really resonated with me as well.
Well, you knew what story you wanted to tell, and you really told that story. Let me just say that. Okay, yes, please.
Yeah, really nice work, everyone. One of the things that did strike me was the portrayal of Black Father, played by Chad Coleman, who was excellent in that thought. The way you wrote him, the way he played that character was, it really hit me. And so that didn't go unnoticed. What was one thing that you learned about yourself during the process of making this film?
Really was like a lot about like the art of collaboration. I'm not just setting up the last team up piece. It was acid with like, honestly, like the art of collaboration. You know, I told you the story one with Leia when we were doing all the gore stuff, and like Daphne can attest to this. Like when we were in the lab, you know, everyone thought it was like super weird for liking the, you know, gore stuff, and like I was excited about it, but like, you know, Leia, she says that you can tell, but like she's gets a little bit squeamish. And, you know, for some people, it might be like, if you don't understand where something's coming from or something, your first instinct might be to reject that, right? And for Leia, she was like, well, you could tell me, but it's like, it felt like she was like, well, you know, I don't completely understand why you like this, but I trust you, and I'm going to dive in with you on this, and we're going to do this together, right?
It was an extreme amount of joy.
Very wicked and cruel sense of humor. And once you like get on the wavelength of it, as with him as a person, then you're like, okay. We'll dive into it.
It's a contagious laugh, so it's like, I want to keep it going. Yeah, but no, truly it is like, it's exactly what you're saying, that feeling of collaboration. Also, I think everybody here just really loved the project, and we took it on as a responsibility, and there was expectation, and it was a joy to be able to collaborate with you, because you needed such a safe and also fun space, even dealing with such dark themes.
Yeah, no, thank you. And like, even with Denzel, you know, like, that moment I was sad when I was like, because I told everyone on set, or all night, I was like, look, we don't got a lot of money, you know, I was like, but the thing I can give you is like a letter where I'll bend the knee for whatever creative decision that you watch. Just like, even if I hate it, like I'll if you love it, I'll bend the knee and I'll go with it, right? And there's a moment on set with, Denzel, when Jamal gets, or when he gets chopped by the machete. And, Denzel was like, I feel like we kind of just figured this out and we only did it once and, we had to move on. Everyone was like, we're all behind. And one of those moments where it's like, if you go back right now, everyone's going to hate your fucking guts. And like, Denzel was like, this is my lever moment. And I was like,
Yeah, it was. It didn't go down like that. Hold on. Let's rewind.
Some records.
Right, exactly. Jesus, hold on. Don't put that on my name. Bomani truly is a collaborator in its truest form. And number one, I mean, I'm sure as you guys know, being in there, like making film is just hard in general, just to get something off of the ground. And so really, like I said, even within the rehearsal process, he really empowered us to take on our roles. And that's just not in front of, on screen, also behind the scenes as well. Everybody was empowered, which is really a testament to who he is as a director. And so having that understanding and that, kind of in the back of the brain, it was like, okay, well, how do we help him cross the finish line? How do we help him get this vision, executed? Because again, this is his first feature film. He's getting this wonderful opportunity. I know brother to brother, a black man to black man, you know what it is, just to try to get one off the ground. So we wanted to be there and support him. Now, what he's talking about was, he did come to all of us as actors and he was like, hey, if there's, I'll always do a take for me and then I'll do a take for you. Now, as you can tell, like time, we got down to 18 days. We started at 20 some odd days. And we just kept losing time. So this was the final day, I think, you guys had me, I wrapped that night. And it was a pretty important scene, like throughout the rehearsal process, we spent that time getting that relationship between Kango and Jamal, really understanding those power dynamics. And, to my brother Keith, he's a fairly newer actor. So it was one of those things like in between takes, me and Keith were always rehearsing. And I just seen something within the scene. You know it and you feel it within your spirit, especially when you're performing across from somebody. Like you feel it within the eyes and you feel it within the spirit. And I wasn't feeling it. And I was like, Bomani, you serious? Like the camera's moving. Do you really feel that take? Like did you trust that take? Because we've been checking each other and he was like, yo, keep it real with me the entire time. And I was like, okay, well, do you really feel that? And is it possible to give me one more take? And our first thing, he was pissed. We're already like 2 hours behind schedule. And I was like, dude, just trust me, please. If I fail, then you can blame me. And he opened that door up and I just pulled Keith to the side and we just kind of had a short dialogue. And thankfully at that point, like that was my brother. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna kind of say some wild shit to you. But just go at it and then let's just improv and let's just find what the nugget of the scene is. And thank God we did because it helped influence the coverage once we turned around.
and it is the scene that you saw on screen that did it. You can really, you see it in his eyes. And even with Daphne, and she doesn't know. She was like, I don't remember you telling me that rule. And I was like, I said it in front of everybody on our team, meeting. But it's like, it was the reason why I said, okay, I like her gaffer. We flew her gaffer out because she was like, I remember our first conversations, you were like, she told me, she was like, it's more important, like, for me to have the right people around me than the toys. And so she was like, I want my gaffer to go here. Like, that's what's important to me. And I was like, okay. You pulled that lever pretty early, but
That's why I forgot. It was early.
They're like good stories. I just want to end on just take, because we do have some film students here. Daphne and then Bomani, both graduates of this program, about 10 years there, roughly speaking. Any words of advice and takeaways for SCA students from your perspective to get ready for the next bunch of years?
Ladies first.
Work with nice people. Find the nice people. Avoid the assholes.
Nice. Bomani, to lead these guys.
Yeah, man, like, know how to hold them and hold them, you know what I mean? And persistence like hang in there. Because, you know, this is my first feature. Obviously, this was 2023. I graduated in 2010. You know, it's just like I wrote my first feature out off the ground like 2018 or whatever. So, you know, some of it will happen really fast. Some of it will be middle and some of it will be long, you know, but I think staying true to yourself and constantly creating is the only answer to this. You know, there's no recipe. The only recipe is that all of them, all my heroes and that I have in common are persistence. You know, and this guy. All of the ideas.
Wise words. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Eric yourself. I thank you all for coming in.
It's cool.
You all,